In this lecture, Professor A.K. Enamelhaq explains why Bangladesh economy has higher economic growth and how China turned the table.
So if you look into the economy of the world, you'll find out the countries where economies are moving, and there's a lot of countries, this is where the recession starts. This is the recession, this is the growth period. This is the growth period. This is the boom, highest. This is the boom, and this is the bust. So you find out that yes, economy is moving into this rhythm, global economy, but whereas Bangladesh economy is moving like this. And that gives you an idea that if I'm a business student, I should understand that in Bangladesh, unfortunately or fortunately, GDP is continuously going up. And that's because of demand side. And the demand is happening, not only that our export is also going up. Why? Because more and more we are exporting every year, more exports. Every year we are exporting more products. So as we're exporting more products, that means our export is also going up, and all of them is pushing the GDP to the right. And as the GDP is moving to the right, our economic growth is common. That's how you see economic growth of Bangladesh. That does not mean Bangladesh does not have a cost push inflation. Bangladesh also has sometimes cost push inflation, and it occurs like this. So sometimes you find out this. But they still, what happens, even with cost push, because demand is already growing, we still see a growth. So in other words, yes, we see some additional inflation coming because of cost push, but we still see economic growth. So in Bangladesh, we see always economic growth rather than a recession. Now, the point that I'm pushing into your mind is that if there is a economic growth in a country like Bangladesh, and if inflation is unbearable, remember inflation, we talked about inflation, this is aggregate demand, this is aggregate demand moving, this is aggregate supply. So what should be our strategy to control inflation? So the question is, if inflation is going from P1 to P2, remember this is our inflation, this is the inflation rate. Our GDP is growing, but still does not mean we should not worry about inflation because people don't like inflation. That is true. So how to control, or you say manage inflation? That is a question that should come into mind. And why it is important? Because if government fails to manage inflation, the inflation will become hyperinflation, and that will create a problem in the economy. People will not fight. This happens in Uganda, for example, Zimbabwe. So don't worry about country. There are countries who suffered from hyperinflation, economic collapse. So inflation is good, but we don't want the economy to be collapsed. If inflation is too bad, people will not even touch money. They will say money, if you keep in your pocket, every day it is losing value. So I don't want to keep money in my pocket. I want to keep something that grow. And then you find out instead of money, you keep products. And products is not a very good way of transaction because it is not divisible. Because money has an advantage because I can divide. I can divide 1 taka, I can divide 50 paisa, I can divide 10 paisa. Remember, this divisibility is an advantage of the money. So that's how money was created, because of divisibility. I cannot buy half goat, but somebody can give me half price of a half goat. So money has an advantage, but if there is inflation, people will not use money anymore. And that is the reason why we realize that, okay, government must have a control over management inflation. Otherwise, people will not keep money in their pocket and the currency will be out of circulation. It happened to many countries in the world, historically. So if the government wants to manage inflation, what should be the strategy of managing inflation? And there are two strategies that we always talk about. One is called fiscal policy, and one is called monetary policy. In the last class, I must have started this, right? So there is a fiscal policy and there is a monetary policy. Fiscal policy is controlled by Ministry of Finance. Monetary policy is controlled by central bank. So remember, the two authorities are there, and that's why we always say that economy is managed by these two persons, finance minister and the governor. These are the two strong persons who are supposed to manage the economy. And if they fail, the economy will collapse. So in an economy like Bangladesh or anyone, you realize that in order to manage the economy, you need an economy with finance minister who has an information and has ability to control this economy because he is going to use fiscal policies. So what is a fiscal policy? What should be the strategy? And in that case, I have a problem with our textbook. So if you go to the textbooks, doesn't matter who writes it, most of the textbooks will talk about because there is a demand and supply, and they will talk about managing demand. So, for example, a lot of people who read it, they'll say, oh, if we want to push the economic growth further, we have to manage demand. Answer, this is true, but this is true not in Bangladesh. It is true in American economy. They want to manage demand. What is managing demand? Remember, their point was demand is not growing. And because demand is not growing, supply is already there. And if the demand is not growing, but supply grows, you see the price dropping. And nobody wants to drop the price as a producer. That's why you'll see that they will not invest either. So in order to promote the economy, you need to increase your demand. So how do you increase your demand? Obviously, we realize increasing demand by asking people to consume more. Answer is why people should consume more. And the reasons we understood in Bangladesh, there's a God's gift, which is population growth. Because population is growing, we don't have to say anything. We consume more. More mouths, more eating. Really does not matter who is paying for it. But more mouths means more food to be supplied in the economy. We have a poverty. Poverty basically means a lot of people not eating properly. But as poverty reduces, more people comes to the market and buy goods and services. Demand grows. And obviously we have remittance coming. What is remittance coming? Means people may be working in America or in Saudi Arabia, but they're sending money and their family now have higher income and they demand more goods and services to improve their standard of living. So in our case, there is a natural advantage. We have a demand growth. But in many of the Western nations, you'll find out demand growth is very difficult. It's not easy to do. So that's why they said, okay, maybe we should bring immigration. So while we're thinking immigration is designed to help Bangladesh, answer is no. Immigration is also designed to help them because if their economy does not have immigrants, demand is not growing. Yes, immigration is a strategy, but they want to make sure that immigration is linked to the economy. That's why they said, I want to only bring in those people who contribute to the production side. That's what they do. So one of the strategies they use is obviously immigration. Obviously, another strategy they want to do is that if we can export more, so they want to export more. So how do you export more? If you want to export more to another economy, the answer is every economy is protective. And that's why the strategy of free trade came. So free trade that you see today, obviously America is against it, or Trump is against it, but this was designed in order to increase their own demand. Because they were trying to sell products. And when they're trying to sell products, we were saying, no, we cannot buy it. We don't have money. So as a result, we were not buying it. We are protecting using VAT, using custom duties to stop our demand. If somebody is importing a car, we're imposing 300% tax. What basically means somebody cannot sell car to Bangladesh. So they started using this idea of free trade. The idea was, if you have free trade, I will export more. Obviously, it's both ways. We can also export more if we have exportable. So they said, okay, maybe it's a win-win game. So that's why WTO was established. Remember, WTO was established in 1995. Let us not forget the timeline. And the discussion of WTO started in 1985. So in 1985, the global economy thought about that, okay, we need to export more because it's a win-win solution. So they started negotiating on free trade across the world, and WTO was established in 1995. So remember, the 1995 when WTO was established, the setting was done in 1985. Why 1985? Because in 1985, when they were doing it, the world was more protective. Developing world was not, has a lot of tariff protection because we could not collect taxes. So the best way to collect taxes is at the gate. So anyone importing products, we said, look, tax as much as possible. So that was our strategy. So the global world agreed on a free trade arrangement led by WTO. We established WTO in order to reduce our tariff, custom duties. Now, this was a fantastic idea. However, unfortunately, the world has changed. How the world has changed? By 2005, if you think about it, the global world has completely changed. Because before in 1985, if you go back to the setting, industrial production, industrialized nations were setting industrial products. And countries like India, Bangladesh, China, all of them are selling agricultural product. So when they were doing a free trade agreement, they were thinking, okay, we, United States and other developed countries, would be selling industrial product. And we, means India, China, Bangladesh, will be selling agricultural product. So it's a win-win solution. The biggest challenge that happened is from China. China has become a miracle for the rest of the world. What was the miracle? China was selling not only agriculture product, but also industrial product. So when you look at Bangladesh, by 1990, our major import is from China and from India. And it's not that we are bringing agriculture product. We started bringing industrial product. And we were replacing Western product. In other words, all the machineries for our garments are coming from China. Generators and many other products are coming from India. So remember, the products are coming from these different sources. And the result was Western world really, in a way, dumbfounded. They didn't realize that, wait a minute, how did this miracle happen? How did China became all of a sudden out of the box? And not only they are exporting agriculture products, but they started exporting industrial products. And then with the fourth industrial revolution, with computer science, China becomes the largest producer. So it's a very interesting change that has happened. So when you see today Trump against sometime China, and Biden will also remain against China, I can tell you, because the China has turned the table that they never expected. It's a complete turn of a table they did not expect. How did it happen is a different story. We teach it in different courses. But I'm just giving you the way global world.
Please subscribe to this channel to receive updates on new videos.
Has changed.